What's up, Barnhill family, and welcome back to your home for all things combat sports.
Yo.
All right, guys, it is time to break down Paddy the Baddy's performance against Michael Chandler. We're going to talk about the technical aspects of the fight and how this was probably the best Paddy we've seen to date. We're going to also debate whether or not he's a top 5 155er at the moment.
Oh, yeah.
And who might be next for him. And guys, before we get started, thank you to Fight Signal. This video is brought to you by them, but more on them after this technical analysis. So, Nick, Paddy the Baddy Pimblett, he's been doubted. A lot of people don't like him. They don't like the brash behavior. They don't like the pomp and circumstance the haircut, whatever it is. For whatever reason, Paddy seems to have a lot of haters.
Yep.
But he also has a lot of rabid fans.
Right.
Don't mistake that. So you either love Paddy or you hate Paddy.
Right.
He's kind of one of those polarizing people. And I fall into the love Paddy category. And I think the kid's really good. And I say kid, but he just turned 30 and he's a dad now. So I think he's kind of coming into his own. What we saw against Michael Chandler, in my opinion, was the best Paddy Pimblett that we've seen to date. What are some of the technical aspects that you saw in this fight that were improvements from fights past?
Well, Paddy proved a lot in this fight. And you mentioned that he was a kid, but he really is a man. And I feel like that's a great way to mention this fight. Not only in competition was this a major step up, but, I really do feel like this was a pivotal moment for Paddy because the world is just waiting to see him lose. They think the hype is all just fake and fabricated, but the guy just keeps going out there and keeps winning, sort of like DDP. He just went on this 8-fight win streak. Now he's got the title. It's just one of those things. Whether he wins or whether you think he's good or not, he gets his hand raised, and I think that's one of the things that's so interesting about Paddy. But the technical aspect of this fight kind of played out exactly how we thought. Both men love to entertain, they both love to crack, and they both happen to get hit a pretty good bit. Both men ended up with their back on the canvas at times. There was some great grappling out of Michael Chandler, but also some great reversals and takedown defense and just ability to fight from the ground from Paddy. And he was able to, find his way back up to the feet, get, out of dangerous positions or get out of rounds that maybe he wasn't doing great in, and figure out how to wipe the slate clean and get back out there and get on the attack. I thought that was really impressive. The aspect on the feet that stuck out to me was Paddy's striking looked good. It's just it looked a little bit slow for me. And he was still finding success with it. He landed plenty of good shots, but the hands were a little bit slow for me. And I think that might have to do with the fact that he's not only acting and fighting like a man now, but he's also growing and building into this frame. He looked bigger last night than he's looked in any of his other fights. And it's not like he looked taller, but he just looked a little bit more filled out.
Yeah.
When you look at Paddy the Baddy, whether he's dieting in camp or not, he's usually wearing a baggy shirt. He just looks like a skinny guy, might have a regular body. Then he takes his shirt off after fight week, and you're like, oh my God, this guy's like got the best body in the division. He literally looks like Islam Makhachev, like the exact same frame and everything. They're really built similarly. So I think that might be slowing him down a little bit, just because his body hasn't caught up to moving that frame. I could be totally off on that, but I will give him that. The one thing I'll say about the striking that looked really good were the kicks. He was really good at exposing Michael Chandler's heavy legs, heavy lead leg in particular. When you've got all your weight in your front leg, it's very hard to transfer weight backwards and then check that kick or evade that kick if you have to. Paddy knew that. He knows that Michael Chandler's a bit of a headhunter, and he likes to kind of get inside, plant his feet, and throw bombs. But Paddy was able to really disrupt that with some big kicks. And even if you go back to the Bellator days, we've seen Michael Chandler literally lose his title off of a calf type of issue that started a big storm with Brent Primus. I don't know if you remember that fight.
Yeah, long time ago, yeah.
Yeah. But that was a brilliant tactic for Paddy, and it worked really well. The kicks were good. He's long, and he knows how to use his range. So I really think that's a good asset for his game, and he's gonna have to get real versatile with his striking now that he's in the top 5 conversations. I mean, you hear the names he called out on the microphone after the win. he's only setting himself up to fight the biggest and best names in the division. So he's got to be ready. He's got to come prepared and have a full arsenal of tools. The ground and pound was very impressive. The top control on the ground was impressive. The submission threats were there, but they weren't as high level as I was hoping to see out of Paddy. I thought that maybe he left a little meat on the bone on some of those opportunities, but Chandler is a dog. He's hard to submit. I mean, ask Charles Oliveira. So I think that Paddy the Baddy showed a lot of improvement. I think there's also a lot more room for improvement for Paddy. And at 30 years old, at 155, the world is his oyster, because I feel like with nobody else speaking the way he speaks, nobody winning the way he's winning, he's finishing great fighters. He's undefeated as far as, he's undefeated in the UFC and not out of the UFC, but in the UFC, he's undefeated. So I really do think there's a lot of momentum on Paddy's side. He did a good thing by calling the right people out. I don't know which one of those guys he's going to get next, but I really do feel like Paddy the Baddy just made himself one of the 3 most important people in the lightweight division.
Yeah, and it's interesting to say, and it may sound like it's almost silly, but I think Paddy has some of the heaviest hands in the 155 division.
He could.
I also think he's one of the best grapplers in the division. I mean, Michael Chandler, yes, he loves to get the job done with his hands, but Michael Chandler's a top-level wrestler, very, very strong, very hard to deal with. One of the technical aspects of Paddy's performance last night that I was really impressed by were his reversals.
Yeah.
Because he did end up with his back turned. He did end up on the canvas with Chandler on top of him, but he always found a way to scramble and get himself back up to top position or get himself back up to his feet and immediately start working attacks of his own, whether it be on the ground or back up on the feet with the hands and kicks.
Right.
The other aspect that I think he did a really good job of was utilizing a variety of kicks. So we know Paddy likes to throw wild hands. He wants to entertain. He wants to knock people out. He wants to put people down.
Right.
But he used a really good low inside and outside calf kick last night. He threw a few to the thigh, but he also had a body kick that landed a couple of times on Chandler that was really nice.
Very clean.
And he was using them in tandem with the strikes, with the punches, I mean. So, he's not just, in fights past, Paddy has kind of done 2 punch combinations and then, kind of reset, maybe thrown a kick. Last night, it seemed a lot more fluid than it ever has before. It seemed like we were seeing 3, 4, and 5 punch combinations, and not just punch, but 3, 4, and 5 strike combinations out of Paddy, which really made him more effective, especially on a fighter like Chandler, who can eat 1 or 2 punches just to throw one back at you in exchange. But if you're putting 4 and 5 on him, it makes it hard for him to reset mid-exchange and start to land on you. So the submission, I agree with you. He probably left a little bit to be desired there, but is that just, his submission ability is not quite to the level where it should be? As you mentioned, Charles Oliveira couldn't submit Michael Chandler, very difficult. So is it that, or is it the fact that Chandler's just so damn elusive and so hard to submit? I think it's more along the lines of Chandler being just a tough guy to get out of there by submission.
Yeah.
But the thing that really stuck out to me more than that was the transitions that he was making, because I didn't care how the finish came. I just wanted to see if we're going to really thrust Paddy into the top 5 conversation, which we'll get into next in this conversation, I wanted to see a finish, and I wanted to see a dominant performance, and we got exactly that. And the transitions on the ground were really good. Yes, he was hunting the submissions, but when Chandler would defend appropriately, he would posture up and throw an elbow and some strikes, which would open Chandler up. So he did all of the right things, so I'm not going to grade him too hard for not getting the sub, because at the end of the day, he got a beautiful TKO ground and pound finish.
Absolutely. Yeah, and really that ground and pound was brutal. I thought it could have been stopped even a little bit earlier. So
probably should have been. I think that went on about 20 seconds longer than it probably should have.
Right, and Mike's so tough that you're like, he's probably good down there. Give him the benefit of the doubt. But yeah, when you got to know when somebody's had too much. And by the way, I don't want to talk about this too much. We got too many things to cover. But the refereeing, usually it's the judges that we have a problem with.
Yeah.
The refereeing seemed to be the problem. It was you could tell it was frustrating. John Anik, Joe Rogan, Daniel Cormier, all of them were just letting the refs kind of hear it on the commentary booth. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, well, I think they let Mike go a little too long, and then, this isn't a Charles Woodson video, but that fight was, stopped way too short.
Absolutely.
So you never know with the refereeing, with the judging. It is in Miami. That Miami's becoming a hotbed for MMA right now. I mean, obviously the training camps are all down there, but as far as like actual shows happening, it's starting to come into its own. You're not going to be as predictable and buttoned up as you are in Nevada. So that's just one of those things. But let's get into the top 5 discussion.
Let's do it.
Because Paddy the Baddy, I want to kind of break the discussion into 2 different questions. One, after last night's performance, is Paddy the Baddy a top 5 lightweight in the UFC? And 2, if so, or if not even, how many fights and wins does Paddy need before he's put into a UFC title fight? Guys, before we finish up this conversation, we just want to thank today's sponsor, Fight Signal. Fight Signal is a cutting-edge UFC AI analysis platform that processes data from over 7,500 historical fights and gives real, digestible statistics for you to dive into. I've really been enjoying their full fight breakdowns and the key points to victory for each opponent. Additionally, Fight Signal has been over 85% accurate in all of their fight predictions going back 2 years. And they got every single fight on the UFC 314 main card correct. There's both a free and pro subscription available, but if you use promo code Barnhill, you will get 50% off.
Thank you very much, Fight Signal. Now let's get back to the show. There's so much there, and I really do feel like some of the other pieces on the puzzle in the puzzle need to be solved before we can have that answer set in stone. I believe if Islam Makhachev watches Bilal Muhammad defend his title at 170 and Islam decides to stay at 155, then we're probably going to have to see Paddy fight 2 more times. Yeah. I think he can get a Charles Oliveira or a Dustin or Justin like he's kind of asking for, but if Islam's there, Topuria is 1 fight away, and there's almost no part of me that feels like Paddy would get a jump over Topuria when him and Islam don't have any problems, and Topuria and Islam do. But if Islam sees Bilal lose and he moves up to try to fight JDM, take that belt, turns his belt over to the UFC or whatever, then Ilia Topuria is likely going to end up with that belt, whether it's off a fight or whether they make it a vacant title, whatever it is. So I think that Paddy the Baddy really does have to sort of watch what's happening, but above all, stay active. If he can keep fighting, if he can keep going out there and winning, and more importantly, get yourself in there with the guys that are going to give you the most credit. Right, so people are like, oh man, Bobby Green wasn't that good when Paddy fought him. Oh, Tony Ferguson wasn't Tony Ferg when Paddy fought him. So he doesn't get credit for beating these guys, even though every fight in the UFC is hard to win. So I really do feel like, all right, look, they're not giving me any credit. Sugar Sean kind of went through this. Remember, he was ranked number 11, and they're like, we don't have anybody to fight you, so you get number 1, and he proved to the world.
You beat Peter Yan, you're number 1.
Yeah, proved to himself after he proved to the world that he belonged up there with the top. I think Paddy the Baddy now has to do the same thing. And fighting these guys on the way up to the top of the division isn't helping him clearly. So he might as well just put all of his cannons in the direction of the big names and the legends of the division, because Paddy the Baddy means a lot in that division right now. 155 is always known as the creme de la creme of the UFC's divisions. But in my opinion right now, because of the guys that have been in the top 5 for so long, it just feels a little bit stagnant.
Yeah.
And I know we've got some new faces, we've got some parity, we've got some different fights going on, but it just doesn't feel like it's humming like 170 is. It doesn't feel like it's humming like 35 or 45 is. And that's weird because the 55 division has always been the most stacked, not only depth-wise, but also star power-wise. These guys, being in the division with Conor McGregor, having that common opponent with a lot of these guys is what makes that division so special. On top of that, all the size of a athletic male human is roughly around that size. So it's the most cutthroat size for any man to compete in mixed martial arts. And so, I really do think that Paddy the Baddy has to watch what's going to happen in the division, but keep a close eye and make sure you fight at least once more, if not twice more this year.
Yeah. I think we'll probably see him once more this year. And I think so. Basically, he called out the 3 horsemen, really.
Right.
And it's kind of the 3 changings of the guard, because you have Justin Gaethje, Dustin Poirier, and Charles Oliveira.
Right.
They're all between the ages of 35 and 37. They're all roughly the same age.
Okay.
They're all also on their way out. Dustin Poirier is the most vocal about it. He said, I'm 1 fight away and I'm done.
Right.
Dustin Poirier versus Paddy is a fun fight. But I think we're going to probably more likely get to see Dustin Poirier versus Max Holloway, number 3, maybe for the BMF belt, probably in New Orleans, and Dustin's going to ride off into the sunset, win, lose, or draw.
Right.
So Dustin's probably off the table. Justin Gaethje, that's interesting. I would like to see Justin Gaethje versus Paddy Pimblett.
For sure.
But I don't know that really puts Paddy into like a number 1 or number 2 position, like the third option, which is the Charles Oliveira.
Yeah.
Now Arman Sarukian is there too, but Paddy said that he's a what do you call him, a posh boy or something like that? Yeah, a mushroom. Or I mean, Paddy. Sometimes I have to actually go to Urban Dictionary to follow what Paddy's saying. I know what a mushroom is, and I know what a sausage is, but I know it in the American context. I don't necessarily. I think it's an insult of some kind. So,
right. Yeah, you're always wondering with Paddy. You almost have to get the Scouser dictionary out. You're like, mushroom.
It's like, I know this is food, but maybe it means something else over in Liverpool. So.
Yeah, it's funny. In America, we're so close to Mexico, so we'll hear people reference chorizo all the time, but he called Ilya a chorizo, a Spanish sausage, which I thought was hilarious, but I will be completely honest with you. I didn't think that the people in England knew what chorizo was. So
it's so far away from them.
So Paddy's a cultured man, I'll say.
Clearly so. And, so Charles Oliveira, though, that was the call out that he made after the fight that he said he wants the most. I think it makes a lot of sense. I think a win over Charles is more impressive than a win over Dustin or Justin at 100%. This point. And he also said something really interesting, and we talk about this all the time. When you make a call out after a fight, especially after a big win over somebody like Mike Chandler, give a reason why. Don't just throw out a name. And the reason was beautiful. The reason was this guy says he's the best submission artist the UFC's ever seen. I got something to say about that. I am going to submit Charles Oliveira. That gets me excited right out of the gate.
That sells the fight immediately.
Sells the fight. And Paddy, and you know what? Paddy the Baddy is a damn good grappler.
Yeah.
And he's got really good submissions, and so does Charles.
Right.
And guess what about both of those guys too? They both love to crack on the feet, and they both hit a lot, and they both get hit a lot. So this
100.
fight would be up and down. One of them's knocking the other one down, and then you get some ground exchanges. Like, sign me up for Paddy Pimblett versus Charles Oliveira right now. Honestly, you could make that a pay-per-view main event. I feel like that's a big enough fight that could be a non-title fight pay-per-view main event. Certainly co-main on International Fight Week or something like that, but that'd probably be a fast turnaround for Paddy. But that's what I want to see. I don't know what you do with Arman, and this really isn't a video talking about Arman, so we can kind of leave him to the side for now. Maybe the UFC forces Ilya's hand and he fights Arman for who gets Makhachev. Yeah. But I think the right fight to make for Pimblett next is Oliveira.
Yeah, I totally agree. Charles Oliveira versus Paddy is a great fight. And remember, we always say this. Justin Gaethje is known as the highlight, right?
Yeah.
Michael Chandler is one of the most exciting fighters on the roster. But we always say, don't forget about Charles Oliveira. Just because he's not built, right? He's not built like them. He doesn't look like he'd be the explosive, exciting fighter. That dude gets in there and just trades with those guys. Yeah. And he gets his hand raised over them. So I really do love Charles Oliveira. He's one of the most exciting fighters. That fight would be so entertaining because Paddy proved to us against Michael Chandler. Yeah, I want to go out there and bang. I'll take a few shots. We'll go to the ground. We'll mix it up a little bit. I'll bludgeon you from top position. Whatever I have to do to get my hand raised. But one thing I'll say to the call out on the submission ace that is Charles Oliveira, the guy in the history books, and this is the opposite of what most people would probably say. Because I hear people saying now after the fight, oh, he doesn't deserve Oliveira. He's not the best submission artist. He didn't even submit Michael Chandler. And I just think that that's perfect. I think that is exactly the answer that he should have given after winning a fight via not submission.
Yeah.
You go out there and then don't submit somebody. It's like when Pereira knocked out somebody, one of the guys he knocked out recently, and then got a black belt for it. I'm like,
who was it? Was that Jamal Hill? No, I think it was Jamal Hill. I think it was UFC 300.
Yeah. Well, either way, I think that's
somehow a solid hand combination knockout gets you a black belt in jiu-jitsu. Do the math on that one.
That's the dojo I want to go to. So I don't want to be learning cross ties and collar this and that. Teach me how to knock you out.
If I knock somebody out, I get a black belt.
Give me the black belt, yeah.
Especially somebody like Jamal Hill, who I don't think ever has even done jiu-jitsu.
No,
whatever.
He doesn't need to know what that is. But no, yeah. So I think that aspect is very interesting to me. And this fight, this entire landscape of the division is changing before our eyes, right? Ilya got rid of his belt. Paddy's now inserted himself as the top guy. There's a couple other names that look like promising future prospects in the division. And like you said, these guys that are between 36, 38 years old, they've told us, once or twice, maybe even, many, many times, like Dustin Poirier, this is my last one. I've got a couple more left. I'm, on my last leg. And we have to take them at their word for it, but at the same time, we understand how this sport works. 9 times out of 10, you wind up face down, embarrassed. And that's just the way the sport goes. And I really do think that Paddy the Baddy is the next wave of guys at lightweight. I think he's going to cause a lot of trouble. He's going to ruffle some feathers and likely even get a hold of that belt at some point. So I think this is a great fight. The UFC understands that Paddy's the next generation. They understand Charles, Dustin, and Justin have done their work and then some in the division. And it's just their time to pass the torch. Now, they might not go down without a fight. They're gonna beat the hell out of Paddy the Baddy if they get the opportunity to. But at this late in the game, I don't know if they're going to beat the young, hungry Lion. Skill-wise, I think he's got a ways to go till he's the best 155er in the world. But there's a lot to be said for momentum, confidence, and just that sheer swagger, that Scouser swagger.
There you go. Let's leave it at that.
Yeah, man.